Peter Obi cannot lose. And the reason is simple. The reason is because you cannot defeat a person who came with nothing. When people look at the Peter Obi idea and the Labour Party, uprising, they think it is something that is a fad, or they see it as something like a trend, a trend that would die off a natural death after the general election. And I would always want to advise them to think again, because this didn't just happen in the last 8 months. Peter Obi's drive to Aso Rock wasn't something that just happened on a whim. Dare I say it started in 2020 during NSAS, if you remember, when a bunch of very young people, myself included, were on the streets demanding for the end to police oppression. Now, it may sound like a joke, but what that situation or what that period actually created was discontentment and awareness of the young people to political matters. Now, before now, if you tell anybody that, look, politics is happening, go and join a party, get your PVC, most people will tell you, I'm not interested in politics. But you can actually begin to see that gradually that type of thinking has begun to change. More and more people that are 20 years old, 21 years old, are becoming very invested in the idea that Nigeria has to be a better country. Now, of course, as people are moving out of Nigeria, there are some who are literally getting more invested in Nigeria. And this sentiment is rife on social media. Today, we have people who are experts on political commentary. And guess what? The weird thing is that these guys are less than 25 years old. Before now, you'd have to be a 40-year-old experienced someone who has been in all the elections, someone who has, met with all the people, name dropping here and there to be able to even make a comment on something. But we had the likes of FS Yusuf. With all that being said, let's not distract ourselves from the purpose of the video. Peter Obi cannot lose. What exactly does that mean? Now, we've established the fact that the drive to Aso Rock is not a whim. It has been coming. And what is happening is the fact that young people are now more aware and more invested in the political scene. They are more concerned about what is going on politically. It's now becoming a trend to know about political stuff. So the Peter Obi presidency is actually riding on the discontentment and the awareness of these young people. So what does it actually mean for Peter Obi to be unable to lose? When we look at the definition of victory and defeat, we always have to look at what exactly does it constitute to be a victor and what does it mean to lose. Just like I said in the beginning of the video, you cannot defeat someone who came with nothing. You cannot defeat someone who you did not expect or you did not anticipate to even be an opponent. Now, what that means is Peter Obi becoming president may not necessarily be even the victory you think it is. Because the definition of victory for the Obidients is evolutionary. It actually changes. For example, in 2020, many people would agree, or many people would argue that the NSAS protest failed. But did it really fail? Of course, a lot of young people were regrettably shot dead at Lekki, an incident that till today brings sadness to our hearts. And we of course know about the story of Oke, the young man who made a tweet and said, Nigeria will not end me, or later killed by a stray bullet in his mother's house. But here's the question. Did the NSAS actually fail? No, it did not fail. Did the NSAS not meet its objectives? Well, perhaps, but I don't think it failed. Because sometimes when you do things, you may not be aware of the outcomes. There's a ripple effect. Maybe the NSAS wanted police brutality to be removed that instant. Maybe it did, but maybe it didn't happen that way. But perhaps it created something bigger. And that bigger thing is the idea that Nigeria can be saved and that we have something to do. We have a role to play in saving the country. And it led us here. Now think about it. Why are there so many young people now more interested in politics? Why is everybody getting their PVC? INEC is recording the highest number of participation of people registering and getting their PVCs. Now, in the first time of Nigeria, there are more people who have registered to vote, who are prepared to vote, marking down their polling units, storming headquarters of the Electoral Commission, demanding for their PVCs to be seen. We can see in Inewi North where people are actually going there to pick their voters' card that have been thrown out in the bush. This has never happened before. So to think that this is the first time is a lie. So let me break it down in theory, or in plain English. If Peter Obi becomes the president of Nigeria by winning the majority votes after the 25th of February 2023, if the election holds, it would be a groundbreaking victory, something that has never happened in the history of Nigeria. It would be the first time somebody campaigned for so short a time, became president without having the political instrument, the structure, and the party funding that would expect a party man to have to become president without godfathers. But what about if he does not emerge victorious after February 25th? Would we say he had lost the election? Perhaps he would have lost the election, but he would not have been defeated. And the reason is this. If he comes second or third with 10 to 15 million votes, it's a victory. The reason is because he has only campaigned for 8 months. By this time last year, less than 12 months ago, none of us here thought that Peter Obi would be president. Every other person who has been contesting from all the other parties had made their intentions known years and years ago before that time. And he's just like a latecomer in the game. So perhaps it may also not be a defeat, because commanding 10 to 15 million votes across the nation for a campaign that lasts for only 8 months, zero funding from anybody, no party structure, it's a victory. That is victory because it is going to create a ripple effect. Now, sometimes people think, well, the Obidients are going to go back home and they're going to cry and they're going to laugh at them. But that's another false thinking. It's false because the Obidients as well have nothing to lose. They were not involved in politics in the first place. Most of them were young. Most of them are young, impressionable, having to vote for the first time. Most of them were mocked for being 4 people in a room tweeting about Labour Party and Peter Obi. Most of them were accused of not being able to vote. Young people don't vote. They don't know their polling units. But today, the threat or the narrative has changed. They're actually trying to react to the idea that the Obedients are more in number. I was on my way to Makurdi, and I passed through the state of Nasarawa State, got to Makurdi. In truth, there were very few billboards and posters of Labour Party. But every time I stopped to ask a person who they were voting for, they always had Obi in their mind. Is it not ironical that in a short time, with very little funding, with not a lot of political groundwork and grassroots penetration, everybody seems to agree with this man? What have they seen? What have they heard? Now here is a victory. Victory is as a result of the idea that with so little, he has gained so much. Now imagine what he can gain if he puts in more effort. Imagine what happens. Whoever becomes president, apart from Peter Obi, after February 25th, would have to rule a country where half of the population think that Peter Obi would have been a better president. They would have to tussle with the idea of, well, you're getting a bad government. I told you so. The idea that Peter Obi would have done better would continue to linger, and that becomes another problem, because we all know that in Nigeria, once you become president for the first time, or governor, it's really difficult for anybody to unseat you. The power of the incumbent, they say. But the idea is this. From now on, if Peter Obi does not win this particular election, it becomes very difficult for anybody to have an 8-year tenure, because Peter Obi is always going to be there. The Obedients are always going to be there. And guess what? Every 16-year-old today that cannot vote will become 20 in 4 years' time. Every 14-year-old will be of voting age the next time. And they are on social media. They are being carried by the Peter Obi message. They are listening to all the rhetorics. They are listening to all the falsehood. They are able to see the lies that are being told by the current government. They are able to see the evil that are being done. They have access to media. They cannot be deceived by religion anymore. They don't have the bigoted ethnic belief that our old cargos have. And now they are beginning to change their mind. Guess what happens then? Guess what happens if the message continues to trend? A lot of Obedients will say that they are discouraged if Obi doesn't win. If you get discouraged because Peter Obi didn't win on the 25th of February, you are fickle. You can't be discouraged because the Obi movement is not a movement that is instantaneous. It's a movement that has been coming for a very long time. In fact, yesterday we knew them as NSAS protesters. Today we knew them as Obidients. Tomorrow there could be a different name. But the same spirit guides the whole thing. The spirit that Nigeria can be better. So as it is now, it is difficult to defeat Peter Obi because he may not win the February 25th elections, but he will not lose either. He will not lose because both ways, the existence of the idea that he can be president, the existence of the idea that we actually have a candidate that can be the best president we have ever had, is always going to remain there. And as long as it remains there, he will never lose until he becomes president. Peter Obi is a movement. It doesn't matter what party he's coming out from. He could be in ZLP, NNPP, APP, NTA, and AIT, and people will still vote for him. So it's actually not about the party he's actually representing. It's about the idea he represented. So think about it this way. It's a war, and wars are not decided on the outcomes of individual battles. Wars are decided at the end of all the battles added together. My name is OG, and I want you to subscribe to my channel and check out this video I made about why Peter Obi will be the worst president ever.